It only took us 6 episodes, but we're finally actually making something to eat today. Broth Based Soup Fundamentals through the production of French onion soup, today on Urban Kitchen Revolution. Hi, and welcome back to Urban Kitchen Revolution. I'm Chef James Hudson. Today we're going to be talking about broth-based soups, fundamentals, and learning those fundamentals through the production of one of my favorites, French onion soup. So let's talk about soups for a little bit. There's many ways to categorize soups. I personally like to categorize soups into one of 3 categories with subcategories underneath them. The first category of soup I call clear soups. Those include bouillons and consommes, which tend to be slightly difficult and we'll be getting to in a couple more episodes. The next category of soups are what I call pureed soups. Pureed soups are just what they sound, fully smooth, and those can include things like veloutes, bisques, and cream of whatever, be it cream of mushroom, cream of asparagus, and so forth. But what we're going to talk about today is the category that I call broth-based soups. Broth-based soups are anything from, say, a chowder, like a clam chowder or a corn chowder, even classic chicken noodle soup is a broth-based soup. But how we're going to learn broth-based soup fundamentals today is through the production of French onion soup. So what do broth-based soups have in common? Broth-based soups obviously have the fact that the main ingredient is a broth that is either fully liquid or slightly viscous, and also that the base component itself is a stock or broth that has been slightly diluted with a little bit of water, especially if you're making a stock as fortified as the stocks we had in the previous episode. So what are some of the commonalities of all broth-based soups? To me, a broth-based soup is any soup that starts with a stock or a broth and that is slightly thickened through the use of a quick roux, which we're going to see when we make this soup today. So really, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So let's talk about French onion soup specifically for a little bit. French onion soup is the kind of soup that in theory is really simple to do, but in practice gets completely messed up and done incorrectly more often than not. French onion soup is really all about the onions and the correct cooking of the onions. If you do this first part right, you can't hardly go wrong. And so the very first thing, so the key to French onion soup really is cooking the onions very slowly over a long period of time. This is not a soup that you throw together in an hour or 45 minutes. This is really an all-day adventure. So pick a day that's kind of drizzly out or lazy. Well, in this kind of environment, a lazy Tuesday. And just take your time with it, put it real nice and low and slow on the stove, and like I said, as we go through this, we'll see the production method and what I'm talking about. If you see anyone using sugar in their French onion soup, they're doing it wrong. French onion soup is created by caramelizing and properly caramelizing the onions themselves. So let's get at it. Obviously, French onion soup, number one thing, onions. For the batch that we're going to make today that only serves about 8 people, we're actually going to start with about 4 full pounds or 2 kilos of yellow onions. And we're going to slice these the way we saw in the, I guess, episode 3 of Knife Skills. And so here we go. We'll review that real quick. For a sliced onion, it is simply cutting off the stem and the tip, cutting right down the middle, getting rid of the peel, and right down that, keeping your fingers curled like we talked about earlier. If you're not comfortable with that straight up and down position, just simply use the knife in a nice forward motion. Use the whole blade. One more time until you develop your skills a bit faster. Tip and stem gone. Tip and stem. Alright. I'm going to fast forward through this a little bit, get these onions chopped, and come right on back. Okay, so we've got all the onions chopped. Next thing we're going to do is take our handy dandy rondeau, or Dutch oven if you have one, and throw in 1 stick, that's 4 ounces of butter. Into the rondeau she goes, and onto one of your large burners, and we want to start this on like dead medium heat, like 4 or 5. What we're going to be doing here is very slowly melting down the onions. We might not be able to get all the onions in on the first batch. Like I said, we've got a lot of onions here, but these are going to cook way down. So just be mindful of that. And like I said before, this is going to take a long time. Probably the course of 2.5 hours at least, just to get the onions cooked down. So be patient, be calm. Don't have to stand over this all day. Come back to it every 4 or 5 minutes. Start the beginning of your novel, do whatever. Watch a little trash TV, doesn't matter. So let's break over to the oven, or the stove rather, and get this bad boy going. Okay, as you can see, we've got the butter melted in the rondeau, and we are going to just simply take about maybe half the onions to start off with. And let those simply coat those around a little bit. We're going to let these sweat down on medium heat until this is reduced down a little bit, and then we'll add the rest of the onions and just continue to monitor this throughout the afternoon. Okay, so the first batch of onions has started to sweat down a little bit. We're going to add the rest of the onions. Coat those. Keep on slowly cooking. We still got the temperature on medium. We're going to actually reduce this down a little bit once we get these all sweated and translucent, which is going to probably be about another 10-15 minutes. Okay, as you can see, the onions have gone way down in volume. They're becoming translucent, but we are by no means at this point really even close to done. It's been about 15 minutes on medium-low heat, and while we're waiting for these to continue to reduce down and then finally caramelize as all the water starts to evaporate out of the onions themselves, let's go over and make the croutons. Okay, so now while the onions are still continuing to reduce down and get ready to caramelize, let's go ahead and make the croutons for the French onion soup. We're going to start with a half a loaf of French baguette, and we're simply just going to make about 1/2 inch cuts straight across, because we're going to put the size bowl that we have at this house, we're going to put 2 of these in each one of them. So straight on down, all nice and even. Simply arrange them on your baking sheet. We're going to go ahead and do nice quick rows so we can be nice and efficient with our salt, peppering, and olive oil. So a little bit of fresh kosher salt. Some fresh cracked black pepper. And then just run a drizzle of olive oil down the whole thing. We're going to put this in a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes. If they're not quite fully toasted and firm, then maybe 5 minutes more. And while that's going, we will also chop up the garlic for the French onion soup. Once the onions are caramelized, this will go in before we add our roux and our stock. So the garlic, just like we did before, a few lessons back, a quick smash on all the cloves. And then with the hand on the top of the knife right here for a quick rocking motion. One more time. And that is that. Alright, we'll check back in about 10 minutes on the croutons and continue to monitor the onions, and we'll be right back. Alright, as you can see, the croutons are out of the oven, nice and beautiful and crispy and brown. Very hard. You want these hard so that when we put them in the soup, they don't get all soggy during the cheese melting process. Also, the onions are just about ready to go. At least it's far enough along that we can start putting the garlic in. So let's go ahead and start doing that and get the actual soup produced. Okay, so as you can see, the onions have started to develop a tan to light brown color. All the water has evaporated, and this entire pot that was up to here a few hours ago of onions has reduced down to barely just covering the bottom of the pan. So the onions are fully melted, all the water has evaporated. We're going to add our garlic and also turn the oven up to maybe just a little bit above medium, so medium high, to allow the garlic to start to cook. We're going to saute this around for maybe just a minute or so, and then we're going to add our flour and cook that out for a minute or two, and then add our stock. Okay, so the garlic is cooked out. Now it's time to, we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. We're going to start with, we'll start with 8 and 8. We'll probably put a little bit more in, but of course it is far easier to add than it is to take salt out. So start a little conservative and build from there. After the salt and pepper have been added, work that around for a little bit. And now we're going to do a technique called sanger. That means to basically coat with flour. Just going to add a little bit of flour. This is going to create a quick roux, which will help to just ever so slightly thicken the soup, and also help to not create an oil slick on the top of the soup as well. So basically we're combining the butter that was in, that we sauteed the onions with a little bit of flour to make a paste now. And that looks good. Generally speaking, for a sanger, about half the weight in flour that you had to butter. And unlike a regular roux, you don't have to let this fully cook out. You just kind of get it all mixed together. And we're going to now we're going to take the brown chicken stock that I have over here that has it a light boil, because a hot liquid going into the roux will actually combine a lot better and you won't get those lumps of flour in your soup. So a small amount at a time. So we're going to just give a little dump. This is basically 2.5 quarts, or just about 2 liters of brown chicken stock that we made in the last episode. As you can see, as we're stirring it together, it's starting to create a thick paste again. We're going to turn this up to not quite high, like 9 on your stove. There we go, it's coming back up to you can see it's starting to boil, bubble again. That means you can add another third of your stock. Mix that in. Alright, now we're starting to get, now we've got a really thick soup here. We're going to add the last third in. Let this come to a simmer. Turn it down to low. Let this cook for about another 35-40 minutes to ensure that all of the flour has been cooked out so it doesn't taste like paste. Then we're going to adjust with salt and pepper for the seasoning. And I almost completely forgot the magic ingredient. We've got a little bit of red wine vinegar here, about maybe half an ounce. It's just going to provide some acid and some, it'll brighten the soup up. So, ounce of red wine vinegar, just for that acid component that's missing. Will kind of open up your taste buds, make everything extra special. And you can see it's starting to come to a simmer. There we go. First little bubbles. And turn the heat down to low. And like I said, let this go for another half an hour, 40 minutes, and we are done. So when we come back, we will plate this up and try it out. Okay, the soup has been simmering for an hour now, maybe 45 minutes actually. Completely ready to go. Final step for French onion soup is to simply ladle it into the bowls, stack it with croutons, and then Swiss cheese, and then into the broiler on high for about 5 minutes until the cheese is nice and crispy. You make nice big full bowls here. Here. And of course, as usual, whatever is left of your soup can be, after it's cooled down, put in Ziploc containers or Ziploc bags, stored in your freezer for way longer than it will ever survive in your freezer. So, put that in here. We said before, 2 croutons. You know what? Let's make it 3 croutons. Because why not? And some cheese on top. These go right on this baking sheet right here. Like I said, into the oven on broil for about 5 minutes. Okay, so as you can see, the French onion soup is out of the broiler. Very, very hot, obviously, because it had some top-down heat, so we're going to be very careful putting these onto to our separate plates. I've got the pie spatula to kind of get at the bottom and onto the bowl, onto their serving plates. Let's get this out of the way real fast. And there we have it. French onion soup. Positively to die for. Outstanding sweetness from the natural caramelization of the onions. Exactly what we're looking for. Really good. So join me next time on Urban Kitchen Revolution when we'll start going into pureed soups in general and tomato basil bisque specifically to learn those techniques. As always, you can find me on the web at urbankitchenrevolution.com, where you can find product reviews, recipes, episodes guides, and general musings. Also, you can find me on Facebook at Urban Kitchen Revolution, as well as Twitter at James Hudson UKR. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join the revolution. Until next time, have a great day.